I'm Christine Persichetti with this current news update. Catholics in New York are reacting to the pro-abortion bill passed by the House of Representatives. While the Women's Health Protection Act is not expected to pass the Senate, Catholics certainly have a lot to say about it getting this far. Jessica Easthope reports.
The bill is passed without...
The worst-case scenario, unheard of, radical. These are some ways pro-life leaders in New York are describing the Women's Health Protection Act.
It's the New York State Reproductive Health Act on steroids.
In a 218 to 211 vote Friday, the House passed the bill, which advocates say would go far beyond just codifying Roe v. Wade. The bill would allow for an abortion up until birth, would allow a baby to be denied any medical treatment if it were born alive during a botched abortion, and one of the most dangerous aspects, a provision that would take away the right for doctors who morally or religiously oppose to participate in abortions.
Is that what we want to do to our healthcare workers who we just lauded for their heroic efforts during this pandemic? Do we want to take their moral and religious liberty rights away from them?
The nays are 211.
Many advocates are not very optimistic much can change. And that's because in 2018, more than a quarter of all pregnancies in New York ended in abortion. And though rates have been on a steady decline, the state has accounted for more than 100,000 every year since 2005. But there are plenty of ways Catholics can fight the bill, and it starts with the device that might be in your hand right now. Advocates say getting on social media and personally promoting the pro-life message has the power to change someone's mind and make a call to your elected officials.
People use their ability to make phone calls and write letters to get that word out there about how extreme this bill is, so that way it's stopped in the Senate.
And this week, Pope Francis spoke about the throwaway culture that leads to the killing of children, saying, quote, "And today this has become a normal method, a practice that is very ugly. It is really murder." The Women's Health Protection Act is unlikely to pass in the Senate. It would need all Democrats and 10 Republican senators to advance. Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
New York City public school teachers have to get a COVID shot by Monday or risk losing their jobs. A 3-judge panel has ruled against the temporary injunction on the city's COVID vaccine mandate, so it can now proceed. The mandate now goes into effect late Friday, so teachers and staff can get vaxxed over the weekend. However, some 97% of the city's public school teachers are already vaccinated. Turning now to the humanitarian crisis on our border. Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry sending a message to the thousands of Haitian migrants being deported back home.
For us, all Haitians who return to their native soil are entitled to be welcomed, and we will welcome them as best we can.
Henry also said the country's upcoming September elections will be postponed until 2022. John Lavenberg, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, is our eyes and ears on the ground at the Del Rio border. He joins us now to talk about this humanitarian crisis. And John, the border in Del Rio is now open to traffic after more than a week. But I just want to remind some of our viewers of what they've seen and heard so far. Nearly 30,000 migrants have been encountered in Del Rio since September 9th. So far, some 13,000 Haitians have been allowed into the U.S. Some 4,000 others have been deported to Haiti. But these are just numbers. You're with these people right now. What are they saying to you?
So right now where I am on the border, I'm actually right in front of the border fence at the Del Rio International Bridge. So where I am, the fence is behind me, and then it's about a mile or so from there to the spot where all of these migrants were the past 2 weeks. That spot is now clear, and right now things are back to normal from what I've gathered from locals. What they said is that at the height of this happening over the past 2 weeks, I mean, they were nervous. They didn't know this hasn't happened before. This many people underneath that bridge are coming at one time. And they said there were nerves. There were nerves until Department of Public Safety in Texas and others, until there was really an effort to get things under control. And what they also said was that while that port was closed during that time, it had an effect on the locals in terms of their work and seeing their families. I mean, as is the same with many border communities in Texas, a lot of people in Del Rio go across the border for work every day. They go back and forth to visit with their families, and that's something they were unable to do for as long as that border was closed.
All right, Catholic Charities has been in Haiti helping with recovery efforts since the 7.2 magnitude quake hit in mid-August. You visited the Humanitarian Border Coalition, who are dealing with the migrant surge because of that disaster. What are they doing for these migrants?
I did, Christine. What they're doing right now is essentially it's a way station. It's a place the Border Patrol brings them there, and they're only there for a short time before they get on a bus and they go elsewhere. So the priority is getting them food, getting them water, getting them other essential items, and then it's getting them in taxis to the bus station where they head.
Wow. John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thanks for keeping us updated down there.
Thank you, Christine.
John Lavenberg will be back with us for continuing coverage of the crisis on the border. You can read his full reports on thetablet.org. The Biden administration is renewing efforts to shield hundreds of thousands of immigrants who came to the U.S. as children from deportation. The Department of Homeland Security says it plans on recreating the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA, through formal regulation. This comes after a federal judge in Texas ruled the Obama-era policy as unlawful, barring the U.S. from accepting new DACA recipients. For decades, art historians have been searching for a missing 17th century painting. But as Currents News' Emily Drewby reports, the missing piece of art history has been hiding in plain sight all along.
A masterpiece hidden in plain sight at this New Rochelle church.
I was flabbergasted, awe-inspiring, honestly.
The church's pastor, Monsignor Dennis Keene, explains it was discovered when a local art history professor, Thomas Ruggio, came to the church to pray.
And he looked up in the lighting at the painting with the bright lights, and he said, gee, that looks like an original Dandini, Cesar Dandini. So he came and talked to me about it. He did some research on it, and eventually it was proven to be a painting by Dandini.
For 60 years, these faces have graced the Church of the Holy Family. A Cesar Dandini, a piece of art history thought to be lost, instead hanging right in the middle of this church. The space where it once hung is now blank. It's temporarily on display at Iona College, where Ruggio teaches. It's called Holy Family with the infant St. John. Ruggio estimates it was painted in the 1630s. It holds special meaning for the church.
You know, it reminds us of what the purpose of the parish is. You know, John the Baptist prepared the way of the Lord, and that's what we try to do. And the Holy Family, that's what we want. We want our families to be holy.
They're not sure how it got there. Best guesses are that it was brought over by a Monsignor in the 1960s. It hasn't been appraised, but a similar painting was at $700,000. Once his 3-month run at Iona College is over, Monsignor Keene hopes to rehang the painting in the church, but that will depend on if they can keep this piece of history safe. In New Rochelle, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
That is this Currents News update. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news.